That's an exciting area too of our business to get into. I love doing this sort of work because we tell them you've really got to start 3 or 4 years before you even think about selling it. And we actually have a little tool. We use a tool called B-Star. It's out of Australia. And that basically does evaluation every year as we're doing the accounts if they want it. And so they could see what progress they're making towards the value that they need when they want to retire. And there's a whole lot of other stuff out there, like, strategies for increasing business, marketing that we can give them as well to sort of help on that journey. A lot of it too is, your drawings, maybe ease off a bit before you sell for a few years, leave a bit more in the business, but make it a little bit stronger. The other important one is it's hard to sell a business, even if it's making $1 million a year. It's hard to sell a business if it's just you.
Yeah, thanks for kind of being roaching to being on the pod, Lee.
Thank you. I'll see you.
Yeah. As obviously we mentioned a line on the phone, this is just really just learning a bit about you and your journey, and we'll throw in some wealth questions from here to there, but they aim to be holistic in nature and kind of to get a sense of what makes you tick, and then we get to learn a bit more about what people view about kind of wealth and building their careers from doing these conversations. So it really helps us in that regard as well.
So that's good. If we can help someone else out, that's always good.
They give people inspiration about, what path they're on as well. I think that's, from the feedback we've got, that's been something that's really resonated.
Yeah. Oh, that's important actually. And I was thinking after you sent me that little briefing last night, I've been very lucky to have some really good people who've taken me under their wing from an early age actually. So, and I think that's actually helped with my career and accumulating some assets and things too. Totally. So that's been really helpful. So I think that's an important part, is to, if someone offers you some assistance, Kiwis can be a little bit reticent about accepting anything really, any sort of help. But I think if they're offering it, it's because they've got good intentions and they want to. So yeah. So
what was some of the advice you got early on?
Basically, actually, when I was really young, my mate, I had a really good mate, he's got a very successful business out west, actually. You've probably heard of him because you're in the area. And he used to say to me just a little thing, which did help. When you're going out, set aside cash each week. There's a little thing like that. It was so small. And it was like for your entertainment. So you work out how much you've got to spend, take that, and then don't spend anything past that. And I looked at him and he already had a couple of houses at about maybe 18 to 20. He'd had one house, and he had, but a very nice car. I thought, okay, he's doing something right. So I've always used to follow that. Obviously, it's cashless societies. It's not quite as easy anymore. So it kind of started there where I became aware that, if you need to put stuff aside, basically. And then I was very lucky. I belong to, I'm one of the partners at RSM. And RSM's quite a large international accountancy practice, but we started off very small. It was called Prince & Partners, and I'm still very friendly with the original partners there. Actually, 3 of them still with RSM because it transitioned through the years into, so it's about 19 partners, 180 now throughout New Zealand. And one of those partners is the one I was talking about. He was a little bit of a risk taker, and so he would spot opportunities like, so we did the accounting, we helped our clients, and he was one of the ones that I would count as a very good mentor. He would find things like, say, okay, we're going to do a forestry partnership for our clients. And then he'd say to us, because we were young then, right, some of you get together and just chip some money in and do that, going. So that's kind of how we didn't necessarily own it ourselves, but we joined together with some other people and just see them all.
Vacation.
Yeah, no rhythm the firm, just some other employees our age, yeah, and then there was a few of those. He was really good like that. And then another one that I noticed people were doing back then was one of the partners who's still there, good friends with him. He and 3 of his mates bought a house together.
Oh yeah.
And they had quite a structured agreement around that house that when one of them met, I think it was me and the other partner, was cooking up, because they were quite young, that there'd be a deal that he had to offer it back to the others first, and you're sure. But what it did was it leapt from them into getting their own property.
Yes.
And it was a nice house too. It was actually in Balmoral, big old sort of bungalow.
Yeah. I've heard that be a strategy for tradies to syndicate with three of them. You know, you get a Sparfy, you get a builder, you get someone else in. And yeah, like
You do with skills, don't get counters or and consultants.
they might keep, maybe not consultants, but accountants, you know, like you keep their books in order, and something you pick up a paintbrush, I'm sure.
There's also I'm going to touch a halo or a drill. Somewhere runs through the hills if I touch a drill.
But we also have in our network this group of young guys at university that have obviously worked and saved through university, and they pulled together a bunch of capital, and they're quite astute, and they've, you know, all got their own portfolios, but they pulled together their capital for investing as well.
Yeah.
And I think, wow, they are early 20s, no debt, have a bunch of assets already, have pulled capital to take some risk in a calculated way, and at a time where you don't have a mortgage, you don't have a partner, you're kind of tied down to less.
Exactly.
And I think doing it collectively as well gives maybe a bit more confidence, and like say allows that kind of cooling that maybe allows you access to something you wouldn't be able to get. For example, obviously a property is a prime example of something that maybe on their own they couldn't obtain, but perhaps collectively they could. So I think kind of capital pooling is very interesting.
It's got easier too, because back when I was younger, if you wanted to buy shares, you had to go to a share broker, and it was like pretty daunting actually. Like, where do you start and how, you know, you had to partake in an issue or something. Whereas now you get Sharesies. I mean, my son, I think he's got 30 or 40 different shares and Sharesies himself. He's at university as well. Actually, might be one of that group you're talking about, actually. But yeah, and they're not scared. These new platforms actually tell you a little bit about the shares, tell you how it's going, give you some trends and some history. Whereas back in the day when we were doing it, it was a little bit blind. You kind of, it's a leap of faith. You didn't 100% know how it was going to go. You just had those big columns in the newspaper, and
I mean, you've got the internet now that allows you to do a far deeper dive into the company level, isn't it? And I mean, that's what we focus with Acuity on the platform side, is doing exactly the same thing, but trying to increase that information dissemination. That's a big focus of ours from a technology perspective, and then as well as that, also making it very cost effective and efficient to dollar cost average into a group of assets. Because what a lot of the online brokers are focused on is more see share by share, whereas, you know, it's a portfolio construction as well. You might have different parts of your portfolio, different parts of your whole entire portfolio obviously have different objectives. A house has a different objective from an individual share or your own personal ownership in your business. And most people's, the vast majority of their wealth won't necessarily come from indexing into dollar cost averaging into an index, like into an S&P index or something. It will probably come from, you know, the business that they actually build or some project that they do that gives them that kind of non-linear step up. But those dollar cost averaging and indexing is also just, it's kind of there's a different, you're playing a different game, right? One, you're accumulating and you kind of have, I guess, less price and outcome sensitive. You're trying to beat inflation in a sense. And on the other side, when you're building a business, obviously you're trying to grow it and really get
a strong balance sheet. Just in case something like we've just had a small, you know, whenever there's been a lot of recessions over the years, and the ones with the strong balance sheets are the ones that come through. But you're absolutely right. That was another one that helped me. The clients have been very helpful over the years too. And I think when you're younger and they sort of take you under their wing a bit, and one of them said, basically followed exactly what you said and said, you need to get a super fund. Right at a really young age, I didn't even know what one was, really. And it was really small. It was such a tiny amount. I stuck into it. But he taught me about, you know, at your age, you can take a little bit more risk. And and then as you get older, you kind of want to keep it so you don't go for as much risk. But that was really good advice too. So I think I was very lucky that I had, he was an insurance broker actually, who helped me with that. And then this business partner too with the business, when I became a partner, recommended that I buy in. So I borrowed to buy in, which I think is better because it takes a long time if you accumulate to buy in.
Right.
And I'd been there a while and I already had quite a big fee base. So I didn't have to buy too much really. And that's worked out really well. A lot of people don't consider their business when they're talking about their wealth. I had an interesting situation with a husband and wife, and she was really concerned about what are we going to do in retirement, and we love it. They have a very, very nice house. She said, I love our house, but geez, if we sell that, we'll only have this much to live on, and we'll have to go and live here. And I said, what's your biggest asset? And she looked at me and went on. I said, no. And she mentioned other things. She said, oh, well, maybe some inheritance in the future. I said, no, what's your biggest asset? And I had to tell them in the end, I said, it's your business. And it was doing really well. I said, you got this really good business. I said, ultimately, you're earning money off of which is paying for your assets, but ultimately you're going to sell it. And that's going to be part of your retirement plan. And she's like, I feel so much better now. What? She said to her husband, look up another asset. He went, yeah, I kind of already knew it. I was having the same little bit, and you forget about it because you've got business, so
That's right. So
you're not just dealing with your customers, you're dealing with all the other things that go with the business, your team, and you kind of get a little bit buried in it.
yeah, like living in the forest rather than kind of stepping away and saying, oh, what's the value of this asset that you're putting all this blood, sweat and tears into?
And how do you make that value get bigger and bigger?
And I think that in New Zealand is a very kind of prominent conversation right now because there's a bit of a lack of succession planning in New Zealand, I would say, for a lot of SMEs and a lot of these kind of businesses that are very profitable in many cases and nice businesses, but they struggle in the multiples because they haven't appropriately planned for how do you actually exit it and monetize it at the right time.
That's an exciting area too of our business to get into. I love doing this sort of work because we tell them you've really got to start 3 or 4 years before you even think about selling it. And we actually have a little tool. We use a tool called B-Star. It's out of Australia. And that basically does a valuation every year as we're doing the accounts if they want it. And so they can see what progress they're making towards the value that they need when they want to retire. And there's a whole lot of other stuff out there, like, how to strategies for increasing business, marketing that we can give them as well to sort of help on that journey. A lot of it too is, your drawings, maybe ease off a bit before you sell for a few years, leave a bit more in the business, but make it a little bit stronger. The other important one is it's hard to sell a business, even if it's making $1 million a year. It's hard to sell a business if it's just you.
Yeah, and then that's succession reasons.
And the more people you've got something to sell because you're selling that knowledge with it. And so I think this is a really good way to leverage yourself and to, give you that sort of earnings that you want in the future.
So do you work predominantly with businesses that have been around for quite a while, or do you go from anywhere from, year one through to exit plan?
Oh gosh, we have a lot that we'll take on that unusual business.
Yeah.
They've never done it before. Did one the other day, actually. It was quite exciting. It's quite a cool business. I think I bought most of the products. I thought I got some really cool businesses actually do some really cool things. So we work with all levels, but I have had some. I've still got some that I've had for over 26 years, maybe 30. One's probably coming up 35, 36 years. Being a very old company, it's transitioned through generations, and it's evolving. It had to because it's of the nature of what they do. But no, there's a lot of long-term clients that we sort of, you're right. So we've got a lot of old ones, but a lot more new ones coming through, and they're very different in the way they work. They've got different styles. The younger ones are a little bit more, geez, we want it now, and and how do we do this? And I love it because you're constantly getting phone calls and emails, and you kind of feel like you're part of a team and helping them. Yeah, so, and it's exciting. I think, they've got a different take on it, really. And it's totally different out there for them too. I think it's actually more difficult. I'd be like, gosh, would I want to start now?
in terms of building business in general?
It's not all cheesy building business. It's just knowing where that business might go, because a lot of technology is changing a lot of things. A lot of disruption, and it's good. I went to a really interesting talk with Michelle Dickinson, Nano Chick, and she was hilarious. She got up there and she pretended to do things, and we had to guess. One was the fax machine, one was the phone, and all that sort of stuff. And she said, at the time that these things became obsolete, people were in a panic. It's like, what's next, and where are we going to go? She said, but you're all here, and you've moved on from the telex and the facsimile, and you're all here. It's not dire. And she was trying to tell us that AI basically is not your enemy. It's embrace it and use it.
It's a huge enabler for unlocking some enterprise value for businesses in New Zealand that may not have considered what's next. And if there are ways to get in and enable that in a business, then you're kind of solving a bit of that succession plan, and you're ultimately driving your costs down.
Absolutely.
And it will be really interesting to see. I mean, one of the things I often think about and fantasize about is the idea of almost having building up an SME fund to buy into business, maybe a little bit like Every Fireouts, where you go into businesses that don't have succession plans and you implement that automation and AI to get that enterprise value. It's obviously something I've not pursued at all, but I like to think about it, because if you look at the multiples that businesses in New Zealand get from these, from sale, it's really not extreme.
Yeah, because you compare it to Australia. Australia's always New Zealand, is around about the 3 to 4.
Yeah.
Australia can be 6 to 7, and then you go, the States are a different level again.
Yeah.
I think too that people should look for the opportunities. If you're working in a business, offer the owners, if they're getting older, they probably would love it if you went up to them and said, look, is there any chance that I could buy you out? If they, because it often doesn't go to family. Your children, you've got children, and you know that you can shoot the arrow, but you don't really know where it's going to go, and they might be completely disinterested in what you're doing. And there's some really good mechanisms to help you buy into businesses now, and the government's acknowledged that as well. And there's some like you can give loans and different things which aren't subject to FBT. So there's little things they're trying to do to encourage that succession piece, because it's a big issue in New Zealand. A lot of elderly owners don't quite know how to divest, but there are means and ways around that. If people talk to their accountants or business consultants, they should be able to help them with that. Vendor loans, there's all sorts of things.
Yeah, I was talking to someone in the agri-tech space on the podcast, remotely actually, and that we were discussing the succession planning of the farming industry and the primary sector, and how the ones that go really well, they kind of manage to do it early, and they manage to do the transition while the offspring had the energy to really push it to the next level, rather than sometimes you can just leave it a little bit too late, and perhaps they're not interested, or they've had to go on their own path because their kind of window, that kind of sweet spot of window passed. So I guess if you think about it, you want to make your mistake. You want to take on as much accountability young as possible, so that you can learn and fail and not have to do that where and not have that kind of all of a sudden a lot of responsibility at 50 or 60.
It's a win-win anyway, because if you take someone young, if you can tell. You can actually tell your successors, you know who they are, because they're just something a little bit different, maybe a bit more energy, a bit more charisma, and you know that that's the one you want to keep in the business, but bring them on, well, even if it's a managerial or a high role, because they're actually going to make their business better anyway, because they're going to be more, they're going to know new things that you don't know, and they're going to help you, and between you, it might even be a partnership.
Do you see that in your team a lot, where you go, got you,
we've got one who's really good. He's gone with Zoe, so we're going to catch up with him at Christmas.
Oh, nice.
We make sure we do just planning and things for our team and make sure we include him in it as well. So hoping he'll come back. You just don't know, do you? That we got a few actually, not just one.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you have worked with a company for like 35 years, which is phenomenal, right? And you've seen the change of the business and it's gone through the same family. Often that's not always the case, like you've mentioned. So, you've got the people who start the company, second generation, third generation, it's gone.
I wasn't there when it started. It was actually 1945.
But you've seen some of that progression, right? And what do you think they did that made that succession so successful? Because it's not really that common.
So it was a smaller firm when I started, quite small. It was like about 30, 35 people, 4 or 5 partners. But we had a really good team, a really good culture. And we've all stayed quite tight, even if people who have left, like some of the ones in these forestry units and different things, we still keep in touch. I actually went on that 80s cruise, the one that goes out of here a few weeks ago. Get a chance to do it. It was on the Pacific Explorer. It was great fun. Everyone dressed up. And one of the guys who I met was in charge of, as I was probably just becoming an intermediate as a junior, was with us for about 2 or 3 years and went on as Zoe. Anyway, we went with him and his wife, and he said, out of passing, which I thought was quite interesting, he said, ever since I've left 30-something years ago, I've been trying to find the Prince culture, and I've never found it. And he's worked for a number of other accounting firms, but he's actually in financial advisory now. And I thought that was quite interesting. So I think if you've got a good culture, try and build it and try and keep it, because it's quite unique. Things are changing and it's actually quite hard to hold on to it. We're quite lucky because we're at 3 offices and I'm in one of the smaller ones, and I am with one of the original guys who I started with and went to tech with and everything. So we've been 37 years this year. We're working together. Haven't killed each other yet. But we had that, and a lot of people have been more than 26 years working with us.
Well, I think that talks to how relationships compound, right? And you get that compounding effect in long-lasting friendships, work relationships, partnerships, etc. Is that
Everything's relationship based, isn't it? We're like a big herd. We need other people to sustain ourselves, really. And I think if you build those relationships, you look out for each other. And I think as you get older, you're not protective and you're not as worried about what you say, and it's just a little bit, becomes easier actually. Because when you're young, you're peer pressure and you're a little bit, did I say that? And that's bad. As you get older, you think, well, if I didn't hurt anyone, does it really matter? And I think that freedom allows you to investigate these opportunities that they'll often bring to the table. Like you made an example of losing. Sometimes you win and lose. There was this guy, he did get us in really good property development, but the crash happened and we couldn't finish it and we all lost money. But I still would say to him now, it's the best thing we did. It was a bit scary at the time because we had, we were new first names and everything, but we all got through it, and it was really, really good because we've gone on, we've learned, and it's good.
Yeah, it's that it's a bit of a sour one because it's Conor McGregor's coach, and Conor McGregor's gone through his own journey, and it looks a bit dark now. But his coach is awesome, and he said he's got a book that you win or you learn.
Yeah,
and that's so true. Like what you have to do is obviously learn from those experiences, and as long as you work in kind of good faith and you put in the effort, it's like that's what you did. That's what you're looking for.
Anyone can do it too, because I'm actually from my mother was a solo parent, and I've got 4 sisters, younger, but we had 4 immediate ones, and we didn't have a lot of money, but we knew we were loved, and we got 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
And she encouraged us to go out and try and do different things. So we all worked from like part-time jobs and stuff from young, but anyone can do it if you've got that, you build up that little bit of confidence, and you accept that life is a roller coaster. It's going to be times when it's going to go down, but it's part of your life journey is to work out how to get through that and keep going. And you will. It's like the share market. It'll go up and down and you'll eventually come out on top.
You mentioned early on you had some good mentors and they gave you some good advice and you had the right mindset to take it. And you just talked about your mum being a solo mum and some of the things that she taught you.
And my father was really good.
Yeah.
Sure, they were broken up. But Dad's had a really high profile job. Actually, he's still part-time working, doing all this Britomart development. So he, even though they were apart, he did have a big part in our lives. But they were very young. Mum was 17 or 18 when she had me, and Dad was like 22, I think. So he certainly didn't abandon us or anything. He was definitely, they're best friends. They hang out and go to everyone's parties and things. So they both gave us that confidence. And we could see how he was being successful. And so, we all
He was seeing the struggle, or because he was a little bit further away, it was harder to see that?
he's quite a forceful character.
Yeah. Wins.
Yeah, so no, he certainly doesn't mind imparting knowledge in a good way.
Sub good fathers did.
Totally. So do you think that's where your mindset around taking risks and building wealth came from, Ben?
I think it came from that partner, and I'm still friends with him. He's a great guy, and he didn't feel like you're taking risks because like I said, we had a bunch of us who were really young, straight out of university together. And at that age, he was getting us to invest in this forestry. I think it was $5,000 a year, but that was a lot of money back then. Every time we had to make that payment, it was over 5 years. You paid 25. We were like, geez, how are we going to get that? And then he got us into a second one. There's building. Actually, the building, he encouraged us to buy buildings rather than rent. But they went in it with us. It was like, they didn't just say, you do it. They jumped in, and then as they retired, they basically sold it across. So it was a journey that we all went on, and that's why I think we're such a tight unit. And there's new partners because we've expanded and done some M&As and everything else. And they're really good too. I see them encouraging the teams within the offices, and it's really neat to see that continuing.
It's obviously a part of your culture, right?
Yeah, and culture never died as it evolved.
Yeah, it's just changed. Like as you get bigger, you have to be a bit more structured. And with me, I was city based. Obviously, I was in the SO building originally, and we're on the shore, so we've got we'll get up to about 30, 35 people. So it is a bit easier to keep the culture when you're that small. And the young partners, one's a really good sportsman, but he's quite competitive. But he keeps saying, now, what are we going to do? We've got to keep the culture, And so he's got a different mindset, but he's very aware that that's how you get good team members. And we give good training. We give them extra days off. We get 4 extra days off a year. Work from home, all that sort of stuff. And we don't expect them to sit around the office. If they need to go and do something, they go and do it. And I think that's a bit of give and take, and that's kind of what's built it. And I'm noticing amongst the younger ones, they're becoming really friendly too, which I think is really good. So it's kind of just transitioning through the generations, which is good. I hope they help each other find some investments and do some different routes as well.
Yeah. I guess in that kind of space that you're in, the interests of the average employee that you've got will be quite financially kind of top of mind because of, accountancy and consulting. It's kind of what you think about. You're often thinking about business if you're in that kind of line of work, which means that you're often probably thinking about investments.
You are, and you're also you're seeing other clients, and a lot of our clients are incredibly successful, and a lot of them have come from nothing. They've just worked really hard. They've had an idea, and you finance everything to develop that idea, and it's just grown and grown. And you see that, and you think, geez, they were so persistent, and there's a lot of really good stories you get out of that, and you follow them, and you sort of think, I got one that when he does a handshake, it's just like you're the most important person in the world. And and he just goes rocking right in and gives you that handshake. And you think, geez, I want to be your friend. I'll follow you. You're really dynamic and caring, and he just completely focuses on you and really successful. And I can see why he just, got that determination and drive. And I think that you see a lot of that in our industry, I guess, because there's a lot of businesses in New Zealand. I think New Zealand's the highest per capita with small businesses. Yeah, it's huge. A lot of failures, a lot of gains. And you do see a lot of that sort of, these people are really enthusiastic and they got a really good idea and they research it well and get the funding to get it off the ground. It's really exciting to see. I think we're lucky. It's a good industry.
Yeah, you get to see stuff from the ground floor. They're good and fresh as well, right? And it's often almost like being an uncle.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of them, I've been on their boards over the years. There's been a few tragedies that have happened, and I've worked alongside them to sort through them. You become everything. I believe a mentor, you become a guidance counsellor, a marriage consultant. Over the years, you kind of see it all. And I think I've ever come out with a person that I wouldn't still go and say hi to and have a chat. But yeah, they've all been pretty friendly over the years. It's been really good.
It sounds like, from what you've been saying, part of your definition of wealth is the relationships side of these things as well.
Yeah, I think if you have good relationship that pulls you with it, sort of without you, and I think it's only as you get older you realise it's happened. Because like I said, I was from a reasonably poor background. I always worked with a supermarket, the lawns, all that sort of stuff. And then I got the job, and I guess I just fell into things and like these opportunities. When there's 3 or 4 others going in with you, it doesn't seem quite as daunting. And so we all did that. And but the house, that was a decision my wife and I made, obviously. And we were lucky there too, because she worked for a bank and got a different loan rate at the time. And everything really, like the buildings and things, it's really come about through relationships with different people that we've met, because a lot of them I own with other people, and my wife, we own them with other couples and that. So our own house we don't, but some of the investments we do. And it's a good way of spreading the risk and having a sounding board. Actually, everyone should have a sounding board anyway in business, because it can get lonely.
I bet. So how do you guys structure that then? If you and another couple yourself and your wife and another couple have gone in to buy some property or a business or whatever it is, how do you make sure that you come out of that still friends? If you know what I mean? Like it could.
Actually, with me, I've been very lucky with one of my business partners, and we've kind of just over the years, and a lot of it's as people have exited the practice, they've said, "Oh, you buy us out," and so we've done a drip fed. It's not been too hard. And you're right, it's kind of come to that point now where it's like, what would happen if one of us popped our clogs, But we have agreements in place, and in that case, we know each other's families really well. So
I think
we look after each other.
And I think there's this view, like we get a bit of a conflicting view on the podcast where, certain people kind of had the view that you shouldn't go into business with family or friends. And then others are like, well, that's not, they're very comfortable to do that. And
I think used to it. It's been 20, 25 years.
Yeah. And I think that it's about, it's in both scenarios, it's probably more about expectation setting and going in on the same page more than the relationship. And the relationship's just an association of the perhaps more so the fear of failure and what these impacts beyond that are if you are close to them.
We've got, obviously he has too, and we've got our own investments and things too, but some of the bigger ones are together. Obviously the business ownership, we're partners. We've had, most accounting firms and law firms are partnerships, and so you kind of have to get on with each other, otherwise it's going to be,
I also think that obviously if you're in business with someone for 20 odd years, you're probably going to be pretty close friends with them as well,
He would, I think we both say we're like brothers, really. We have the occasional bicker. But I honestly can't say overall. It's it's nearly 35 years, I think. And I don't think we really had a major dust up. We had a couple of occasions, but nothing. We're still really good friends. We got each other's backs. We'd certainly, look after our families. They've all become grown up together. We've had kids about the same age and all that sort of stuff. And they're all friendly. So I'm not too worried about that. joint asset. Eventually there'll be a point where it's sold and each family would take their own, but no, it's worked out well.
I think it's cool. I think it's actually, yeah, it's ideal. Yeah, it might be just because, like you say, it's better to do it with other people than on your own. You've got people to rely on. And
Absolutely. Because and when you're young too, you're going in it at the same level. That's important. Neither of us was wealthier than the other either. We kind of, and all the others, just about a group of about 10. And we all started as grads, and yeah, we just, like I said, we were scrambling around trying to find the money for the forest and things.
yeah,
But yeah, no, it was like that. We've just grown at the same level slowly. And you do become more aware of it as you get older. You think, now, how much do I really want to travel? And am I going to have enough money? And you do start thinking about that. And my advice to anyone, think about it early. It's basically think about the end when you're starting, especially with the business.
yeah.
You should always go into a business thinking about, well, what's the ultimate goal? Can I sell it?
That.
And because that's part of your retirement plan.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. The lack of succession is something that I always, you end up always going back to. What was I going to say? Oh, I noticed. Oh, well, yeah. How important is cash flow management? Because we're doing these financial well-being program with employers.
Oh, yeah.
Where we go and we'll have one-on-one coaching sessions with individuals to help them basically improve their cash flow. That's also not product. Staying away from product and going, hey, what does today look like actually? What's the budget? What's the assets? What's the liabilities? Where's the surplus? If there is no surplus, how did you find surplus? Because I find that cash flow is often the source of freedom and source of optionality.
It's also a cause of angst when there's not enough. I think you are onto a winner there because New Zealand isn't that great at it. We don't have a lot in our savings. We tend to live a little bit, I suppose, mouth to foot, especially when you're younger because we're out partying all the time. But I think giving that coaching, giving that people that knowledge is really important. I've noticed the banks are starting to do a bit more too, trying to educate people. And I guess it's if you've got a partner, talking to them actually, your own, like my wife, and we often go away and we don't write it down or anything, but we talk about what are our goals and how we're going to get there and what do we need to do. I remember things like house alterations. We wouldn't do them until we always keep it tidy and everything, but we wouldn't do the alterations till we had the cash to pay for it. It was like rather than getting more debt. So there's that, just those little considerations. When you're younger, invite people around. It's good fun because you save money, and they're all normally in the same boat too. So they're quite grateful that you're doing it and you'll go back to theirs. And it's just a way of saving that money and maybe paying down the mortgage a little bit quicker.
Yeah, for sure.
Always the little things, which I'm sure you tell them, is make sure you don't pay monthly. It's always got to be fortnightly if you can, weekly, if they let you. Because each time you make a payment, it drops the interest. The ex-interest payment. So, little
Optimizations, it's also, like you say, goal setting. Like, what does a better future look like? Because we know that then for the employers, if we can get people motivated and kind of enthusiastic about the future, then the productivity in the business is almost definitely going to go up, right? So, and better to live a life of purpose and having that framework, because that makes the angst go away.
Absolutely.
And what we found from the tool that we built is that visualizing it, actually the solutions become clear by the screen, right? Because it's like, oh, my interest expense is currently this much a year.
How am I going to get that down?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So it's something that I'm quite passionate about and took steps after I was kind of finishing up with a gaming business I had built in 2017. So it's something that Dave Ramsey, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's a guy in the US that's kind of on that. And in the US, they had so much more student debt and car loan debt here, and they pay interest on that student loan debt, whereas you don't here unless you leave the country, right?
If I got you here, just get to come back.
So yeah, I think that cash flow piece is huge, and like
And that's a really good initiative you've taken, because it's actually something that should be taught at school.
yeah, I'll totally but
Look, some people are really good at it. I had some friends who, his father, he used to educate them and show them how to buy shares and things like that. This is while they were still at school.
yeah,
So they kind of came out of, I think, the ground running really. And
totally. Yeah, we'd love to do something in it, like some sort of foundation construct one day, where maybe, you know, if we have clients, maybe that client can actually help someone that's a student and growing become financially literate.
I think we'd say, them quarter house is what's missing in schools. Because all of them come out and then they get the student debt. It takes them 5 to 10 years to pay that off before they even hit the ground running.
Yeah. And it is those people that come out with no student debt somehow, however they do it, whether it's working weekends or having their own little side hustle or whatever it is, they seem to have the least angst coming out of it, for sure.
They're used to working, Tim.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have a choice. We had to. And my son, though, possibly would have had a choice. But he works every Sunday, last 6 years. And he's been turning at the moment. So he's used to working too. And it's just, and he spends, basically pay for a lot, but he'll pay for all his own gas and all that sort of stuff. And it's just that independence I think it gives you. It's actually quite nice too. Nice feeling to think you've got your own money.
Oh, yes.
Oh, and then you're doing something with it if you're like trying to make more of it rather than just consume something that's gone, like, I don't know, food, right? If you go and do takeout food, that's gone in 10 minutes.
And this is Kiwi. If you looked at, if you looked at your bank account, it's under 1,000. If you think about it, that's a week.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen? Anything could happen, and then you'd be
So
you're scared.
that's where the emergency funds and
Yeah.
the different things like that come into play, like the two so really essential, and maybe not over consuming as well in terms of financial products. I've seen a few people, because of these consultations, that maybe have like protection for themselves, but they've got double or triple protection, and that actually starts to add up and reduces the cash flow.
That's crazy. That's right. That's the first thing you ever try and do, but you don't worry about the life body.
What do you think then about intergenerational wealth, and what do you think are the biggest lessons and kind of, I guess, base that you can give your kids to give them the best shot, not just obviously financially, but also kind of maybe like mentally?
I think I was told a long time ago, third or fourth generation normally loses it. Second keeps it. So the first one builds it, maybe from nothing. The second one keeps it. The third keeps it, but the fourth doesn't have that tie back to the first, and they often lose it. And you've probably heard that before too. So I think it's our obligation to educate our children. I think you do a good job, with your products. And this cash flow bit's really important. So I know with my son, he's probably more astute than me, to be quite honest. And he's always, accumulating money, and he has plans. I think plans are really important. He's got really good plans. He's basically told us he's going to buy the house and how he's going to do it. He doesn't want it for free. And we're like, that would work in retirement. Yeah, okay. But, he's got plans and he knows what he wants to do. And I think I did maybe too, but maybe not to that sort of degree, but I had plans too, going when I was young, because I knew that we weren't the wealthiest, and I just, probably more than becoming wealthy, just security of knowing that if something did go wrong, like this $1,000, you've got a little bit of behind you, a buffer. And I think that always gives you that little sense of, okay, I can be a little bit more confident now knowing I've got that. And there's a lot of people that aren't in that position. So I think it's our obligation too, as we get older, to give back. I think that's really important, because there's a lot of people who don't have the sort of, I'm looking at the two of you, and your kids will be fine because you'll educate them. But there's a lot of kids that probably don't get that. And it's a bit sad. So we do, as business and individually, been in the Rotary, I'm on the North Harbour Club, which is promoting excellence and things like that. Try and give back. I think it's really important. Blue Light, wonderful guys. Taking these disadvantaged kids, 4,000 or 5,000 a year, I think. and some of them now in the army or they're in teaching, they just turn them around. So I think, that makes you feel a bit better too, that sure, you're looking after your own family, your own intergenerational wealth. But if you can help someone else start that journey where you might have, or maybe.
And I think it's about like being realistic around like your impact. I find that we more and more there's this binary view of, oh, well, it should just be the same outcome for everyone, rather than being like, oh, how can I actually have an impact? Like,
Because it's not the same outcome, unfortunately.
right? And how can I can't really think about how can I save the world. I can maybe say, how can I help, someone who's doing your job saving the world. That, or how can I impact 5 people in my community?
Yeah. If everyone did that, if everyone did 5 measurement, that'd be great.
Yeah, totally.
Because there is some hardship out there.
Totally. So what do you think what would be, how do you idealistically look at the last 10 years of your life? This is the hardest question, the last one. So if you could have, what would,
I think they've been, of course, I'd like to be 10 years younger, but I think they've been good.
Yeah.
I think I've got more confidence.
no, I mean, sorry, maybe I've framed it wrong. Fast forward now to the last 10 years of your life.
Oh, well, I'm going to die.
You're not going to die, but the last, what do you about?
I'd want to be in a position where I think that all of us are probably the same. You've worked hard, and you'd like to think, well, I'm not flashy. I don't care if I don't go business class or something, but I like travel. So I'd like to think my partner or my wife and I could go and do the travel we want to do. Not necessarily stay in the glitzy hotels, but just go and do it. I like exploring. Go and do that. And that's sort of something I'm aiming for my last 10 years of life. Being independent, I think it'd be nice. I mean, the worst thing that we all think about is, if something happened and you weren't, and having to rely on someone. I think independence and having a loving family, I think it's always important, and friends. I'd like to think that I've kept the relationships, because I've been lucky. I've had some really good relationships from a young age when I first started work, and I've still got them. And I just need to make sure when I retire, because everyone goes and does different things, that you keep that going and still have each other's backs. So I think the last 10 years, it'll be doing a bit of travel. I'd love to actually have the time to properly get immersed in something. Like, I've been asked onto the board of an entity that looks after people who've got some disabilities. And I love that. I just love going there. I love everything about it. But I'd love to actually go in properly and have that time that I could devote and do it properly. And that'd be really cool, because it's so nice, such neat people. And I've got a friend who works in the mission. My wife did say, do not go out the front. I'd have to work at the kit. There'd be much good out the front. I'd like to do something like that, or hospice, something to give back, I don't think I'd ever sit still.
Yeah, excited. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been a really fun conversation.
Oh, thank you. I think you guys are amazing. I'm loving this education piece that you're developing and helping people, because I think it's actually missing. I just wish it could get down lower to a younger age.
Yeah. I mean, I think my observation is that perhaps financial services are so transactional in New Zealand and Australia, which is so unlike the rest of how we operate. And I think if we can make financial well-being, I guess, less transactional, then
Literacy.
yeah, like what are the fundamentals, what are the first principles, and go from there.
How do you build it? How do you keep it? And how do you give yourself that little buffer zone? I think that's really important.
Well, and Cashflow is happiness.
It is. They say money doesn't count, but you could be pretty unhappy. You're wondering where your next meal's coming from.
Totally.
So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Thanks. Thank you. Let's stay in touch.